menglong, when truth collides with power. At exactly 3:17 a.m. Beijing time, a single light burned on the 32nd floor of a glass tower overlooking the Third Ring Road. Inside, a man stood alone, phone pressed to his ear, listening without speaking. Below him, the city slept. Above him, the internet did not. By sunrise, menglong's name would be everywhere again, splashed across trending lists, whispered in group chats, dissected by commentators who had never met him but spoke as if they knew his heartbeat. Some called it justice. Others called it a witch hunt. What no one could deny was this: the collision had begun. Truth versus power. Silence versus noise. One man versus a machine far larger than himself. The making of an idol. To understand the explosion, you must first understand the pedestal. Menglong did not arrive in the entertainment industry by accident. His rise was carefully choreographed. The boyish smile, the disciplined work ethic, the image of humility polished to a mirror shine. Fans remember the early interviews, him bowing slightly before answering questions, thanking staff by name, insisting he was just lucky. Luck, however, is rarely alone at the top. Behind the camera flashes stood contracts thick as novels, managers who spoke in coded phrases, and an industry that rewards obedience as much as talent. Power in this world is quiet. It wears tailored suits and smiles gently while reminding you, always, who controls the narrative. For years, menglong fit perfectly into that narrative. The first crack. The first rumor appeared the way rumors always do: vague, unattributed, easy to dismiss. A post. Deleted within minutes. A screenshot saved by someone faster than the censor's finger. A sentence that began with "I heard that" and ended with nothing concrete. Fans argued among themselves. Skeptics rolled their eyes. Loyalists reported accounts en masse. Then came the second crack. A former associate, face blurred, voice altered, spoke in an online interview about pressure, about standing in for someone too important to fail, about contracts that were never meant to be read aloud. No names were mentioned. None were needed. The comment section erupted like dry grass in a storm. Still, there was no proof. Only implication. And implication, in the age of power, is dangerous currency. Behind closed doors. Inside conference rooms with tinted windows, conversations shifted tone. Endorsement teams asked questions they had never asked before. Legal departments dusted off contingency plans. Public relations experts spoke the language of crisis: monitoring, risk assessment, controlled silence. Power does not panic. Power calculates. Menglong, according to those close to him, stopped sleeping. He reread old messages. He replayed past decisions with surgical precision. Which compromises were harmless? Which ones would now be reinterpreted as sins? There is a moment, often invisible from the outside, when a person realizes they are no longer in control of their own story. That moment is quiet. It feels like standing in an empty room after everyone else has left, applause gone, doors closed, echo fading. The internet tribunal. By the time mainstream platforms acknowledged the controversy, the verdict had already been written, many times over. Short clips circulated, stripped of context. Old interviews were reframed as evidence. Innocent pauses became tells. Smiles became masks. Silence became guilt. Why won't he speak? One post demanded. If he's innocent, he should explain everything, said another. Power always protects its own, declared a third, racking up thousands of likes. What no one agreed on was what everything actually was. Truth in this environment does not arrive whole. It arrives shattered, each piece claimed by someone with an agenda. When power pushes back, then came the counterweight. Statements, carefully worded, legally precise, appeared. They denied wrongdoing without addressing specifics. They emphasized cooperation, respect for process, confidence in clarity over time. To some, they sounded reasonable. To others, they sounded rehearsed. Power had entered the chat. Industry veterans warned younger idols privately, say nothing. Let it pass. Fans organized defense campaigns, trending hashtags that framed Yu Menglong as a victim of jealousy and misinformation. Opponents responded with longer threads, darker theories, louder certainty. The truth, whatever it was, seemed to shrink under the noise. A night of reckoning. One night, long after the city lights dimmed, Yu Menglong reportedly returned to an old studio, the kind with scuffed floors and peeling posters, where fame still felt like a dream instead of a burden. He sat alone, listening to a recording of his own voice from years earlier, full of hope, unafraid. This is the part no headline captures. The private reckoning. What do you owe the truth when the truth might destroy not just you, but everyone tied to you? What do you owe yourself when power demands silence in exchange for survival? Heroes in stories choose clarity. Real people hesitate. The cost of speaking. History shows us that when figures challenge powerful systems, the outcome is rarely clean. Speak too much, and you risk legal ruin. Speak too little, and the public fills the gaps with fire. Those who wanted Yu Menglong to just tell the truth underestimated the complexity of truth inside power structures. Contracts have teeth. Silence has clauses. Even honesty can be weaponized if released at the wrong time. And yet, silence has a cost too. Every day, without resolution, hardened opinions. Neutral observers picked sides. The man at the center of it all became less human, more symbol, a canvas for anger, loyalty, disappointment, and projection. What remains unclear. As investigations, clarifications, and quiet negotiations continued behind the scenes, one reality became unavoidable. This was no longer just about Yu Menglong. It was about how modern fame works, about how quickly admiration turns to suspicion, about how power shapes which truths are amplified and which are buried. Some allegations would later be challenged. Some narratives would soften. Others would never fully disappear, lingering like smoke long after the fire was out. Because in the digital age, nothing truly ends. When truth and power collide. When truth collides with power, it does not explode neatly. It fractures. Power tries to contain the blast. Truth tries to escape it. And the person caught in between is often crushed, regardless of guilt or innocence. Yu Menglong's story, still debated, still evolving, stands as a case study in that collision. Not a simple tale of villain or victim, but a complicated portrait of a man navigating an industry where image is currency and silence is strategy. In the end, the most unsettling question is not what really happened. It is this. If the full truth were known, raw, unfiltered, inconvenient, would the world actually know what to do with it? As the lights in that glass tower finally went dark, one thing was certain. Power would endure, the internet would move on, and the truth, whatever shape it ultimately takes, would have to fight to be remembered. Because when truth collides with power, survival is never guaranteed. The aftershock. The morning after the storm did not bring clarity. It brought lawyers. Black sedans lined up outside an anonymous building with no signboard, the kind of place where decisions are made quietly and consequences echo loudly. Inside, folders were stacked like barricades. Each one contained fragments of a life, contracts, call logs, non-disclosure clauses written in language so cold it felt surgical. This was where power retreated when exposed to light. And this was where truth was weighed, not for accuracy, but for damage. The price of memory. A former assistant sat across from a legal representative, hands clenched so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She had not planned to speak. None of them ever did. But memory has a way of resurfacing when silence becomes heavier than fear. She remembered late-night calls that made no sense. Sudden schedule changes. A voice saying, "Just help him this once." She remembered being told that loyalty was everything in this industry, and that disloyalty was unforgettable. Her testimony was careful, measured. She knew one wrong word could end her career before it officially began. Outside the room, power waited patiently. Yu Menglong under glass. Meanwhile, Yu Menglong lived like a museum exhibit, visible, observed, but untouchable. Cameras followed him entering buildings, exiting cars, bowing to staff who were suddenly too nervous to meet his eyes. Every step he took was slowed by speculation. Every expression was decoded like an encrypted message. When he finally appeared in public, it was at a private event with controlled attendance. The room was dim, the applause polite, restrained. He stood at the podium longer than necessary before speaking, as if listening for permission from the walls themselves. "I hope," he said softly, "that time will allow the truth to breathe." It was not a denial. It was not a confession. It was a gamble. The war of narratives. By nightfall, that single sentence had split the internet in half. Supporters called it dignified restraint, proof of a man trapped by forces beyond his control. They shared old clips of his kindness, stories of quiet generosity never meant for cameras. Critics heard evasion. They dissected the pause before the word truth, slowed it down, replayed it, insisted that hesitation revealed everything. Two truths were being built simultaneously, each airtight, each furious, each unwilling to coexist. This is how power survives, not by erasing truth, but by multiplying it until no one knows which version to trust. A door cracks open. Then came the leak. Not a dramatic exposé. Not a headline-grabbing confession. Just a document, blurry, partially redacted, circulating in private forums before escaping into the wider web. It hinted at stand-ins, protected schedules, and a system designed to preserve an image at all costs. No signature. No confirmation. Just enough to make denial harder. Within hours, certain posts vanished. Accounts went silent. Search results shifted subtly, like sand rearranging itself after a wave. Power was moving again. The lonely choice. Late one evening, menglong dismissed his staff earlier than usual. He sat alone, city lights flickering through the curtains like restless thoughts. On the table lay two phones, one personal, one for work. The work phone buzzed relentlessly. The personal one remained still. He opened an old notebook instead. Inside were handwritten reminders from years ago. Be honest. Be kind. Don't forget why you started. Words written by someone who had not yet learned how expensive honesty could be. This was the moment no one live-streamed. The moment of choice. Speak fully, and risk collapsing the scaffolding that held everything up. Stay silent, and become a permanent symbol of suspicion. Truth demanded courage. Power demanded obedience. When silence starts talking, days passed, then weeks. Official updates slowed. The frenzy dulled into a low, constant hum. New scandals emerged elsewhere, dragging attention away but not resolution. Yet something shifted. People began asking different questions. Not is he guilty? But why is this system so opaque? Not why won't he talk? But who benefits if he doesn't? Silence, once weaponized against him, began to turn on the structure that enforced it. The unfinished collision. menglong's story did not end with a clean verdict or a dramatic downfall. It lingered, in interviews that never aired, in testimonies still sealed, in careers quietly redirected. And perhaps that is the most honest ending of all. When truth collides with power, there is rarely a winner. Only survivors. Only scars. Only lessons written in cautionary ink.